stop scrolling. Something rare just aligned for you, and you can feel it. A small internal click, like a lock turning quietly in a hallway you didn't know was yours. You didn't land here by accident. Your choices escorted you. Think back to the last month, the hunch you couldn't shake, the conversation that echoed for days, the invitation that felt bigger than its calendar slot. Those weren't coincidences, they were coordinates, and you've been following them even when you pretended not to. Every ordinary day has carried a tiny shimmer, a wait, look closer moment you almost ignored, almost. The difference between the person who repeats and the person who rises is a single decision, repeated, until the world has no choice but to notice, and right now, that decision is asking for your signature. You know the pattern, you feel the spark, you overthink the spark, you put the spark in a drawer labeled later, not this time. There's a version of you who treats alignment like oxygen and doubt like background noise. They don't speak louder, they're simply finished with bargaining. If your life were a room, this is you reaching for the light switch. Click. The dust you thought was fog is gone. You can see the floor, the door, the staircase that was always there. You don't need a prophecy. You need a plan with a pulse, and it begins with a promise to stop mislabeling intuition as luck. Notice how your attention keeps returning to the same idea. Notice how your body leans forward when a certain topic enters the room. Notice how guilt shows up dressed as responsibility whenever you consider choosing yourself. Guilt is just your old life asking for an extension. Decline it. You're not built to apologize for momentum. From here forward, measure your days by one simple question. Did I move like someone who expects to win? Not brag, not perform, not impress. Expect. Expectation shapes preparation. Preparation shapes outcome. Winners don't get secret handshakes, they get honest calendars. So audit your inputs. Silence the channel that declares you almost ready forever. Upgrade the small daily hinges that swing big doors. The hour you wake, the fuel you choose, the first 10 minutes after you open your eyes. Predictable excellence is just well-watered basics. The story you've been telling yourself about someday has expired. Write a new one with today's date on the top line. When your mind offers you every reason to stall, answer with evidence. One committed action that cannot be undone by doubt. Send it, schedule it, start it. Every step broadcasts a frequency, and the world is listening for your station. Tune in. Stay there. This is the moment you stop treating your potential like a rumor and start treating it like a responsibility. Most people meet messages like this and keep scrolling because it doesn't match the story they're rehearsing. But you paused, and that pause is data. Selection isn't mysterious, it's mechanical. Your life is a giant pattern matcher that serves you more of what you repeatedly prove you'll do something with. You've been quietly voting with your attention. The posts you save instead of skim, the rooms you enter even though you feel underqualified, the questions you ask that make silence gather in a good way. That's why you're here. You trained your world to bring you signals instead of noise. Think of every choice as a search term. The more precise you get, the cleaner the results. When you say I'm done with excuses and then act like it, opportunities tagged requires ownership start showing up on your doorstep. When you say I value my focus and then protect it, conversations get shorter, outcomes get faster, and drama loses interest in you. This is how readiness works. Not as a feeling, but as a trail of proof that tells life you're a safe place to deliver bigger assignments. The algorithm of the universe, if you want to call it that, has one question on loop. Do you mean it? And it listens to your calendar, not your captions. So mean it. Replace passive hope with active selection. Curate your inputs like an athlete curates fuel. Don't just manifest. Manufacture conditions where your best self is the default, not the exception. That's what the few do differently. They stop waiting for motivation to knock and install a door that opens only for what they asked for on purpose. There's another layer to this filter, and you've felt it already. Those micro yeses your system gives off when you're near people, places, and projects that live at your frequency. Pay attention to the cues. Your breathing gets slower. Your ideas get louder. Your sense of time goes weird in the best way. That's resonance. When you feel it, Commit quickly. Momentum hates hesitation. But understand this, selection also removes. As you choose this channel, other channels will dim. Some invitations will stop arriving. Some rooms will stop clapping. That's not rejection, that's calibration. You're not being pushed out, you're being pulled forward. The only thing you owe the past is gratitude and clean boundaries. From this point on, treat every yes as sacred. If it doesn't multiply your energy, it taxes your excellence. You are now the kind of person who is discoverable by solutions, visible to unlikely allies, and magnetic to deadlines that make you sharper. That's not magic. That's the compound interest of aligned choices. Keep feeding the filter with courage, proof, and focus, and watch how fast the world starts delivering exactly what you've been prepared to carry. Have you noticed how life keeps whispering to you in ways that are easy to dismiss? The text that arrives at the exact moment you're thinking about someone. The random line in a book that feels like it was written with your name on it. The sudden thought that interrupts your routine and won't leave you alone until you act on it. These are not random blips, they're signals, and they've been pulsing beneath the noise of your day-to-day. Most people scroll past them, shrug them off, bury them under distraction. But you've been catching them. You felt that subtle shift in the air when a choice mattered more than you realized. You felt that internal jolt that says, pay attention right now. That's not paranoia, that's guidance. It's like your consciousness is tuned to a private frequency that only certain people can hear. And here's the truth. The more you respond to it, the louder it becomes. Ignoring it doesn't silence it. It just forces it to reroute, to tap you on the shoulder in other ways, sometimes with inconvenience, sometimes with pain, until you finally acknowledge that something bigger than chance is at play. Winners aren't people with perfect timing. They're people who learn to trust that tap on the shoulder and move before they had a guarantee. The difference between drifting and directing your life is as small as saying yes to the signal instead of debating it into silence. Every time you choose to honor it, you accelerate. Every time you ignore it, you stall. Think about the moments in your past where you felt an undeniable urge to pivot. Maybe you walked away from a situation that drained you. Maybe you stepped into an opportunity you felt unqualified for. Maybe you admitted a truth you'd been hiding. Those decisions shaped more than your next step. They adjusted your frequency, and that frequency is exactly why this message found you. You've been in training, even when it felt like confusion. Those nudges were rehearsals, and now you're fluent enough in their language to finally act with conviction. So don't wait for lightning bolts or cosmic signs. Start listening to the whispers, the quiet yes that always knows more than your fear does, and treat them as the coordinates to your next win. But here's what no one tells you. Listening to the signal always costs you something. Growth rarely feels like triumph in the beginning. It feels like shedding. Shoes that once fit start to pinch. Rooms that once celebrated you now feel suffocating. Conversations that used to light you up suddenly bore you. That's not failure, that's outgrowing. You've been carrying versions of yourself that belong to earlier chapters, costumes stitched together for survival in rooms you no longer belong to. And the longer you wear them, the heavier they become. The tension you feel is not because you're broken, it's because you're too big for the container you're still trying to squeeze into. This is the part most people resist because letting go feels like loss. But what if it's not loss? What if it's proof you've upgraded? Think of a snake that refuses to shed its skin. It doesn't stay safe, it suffocates. Think of a butterfly clinging to its cocoon. It doesn't stay secure, it dies in its disguise. Outgrowing is the tax you pay for expansion, and refusing to pay it keeps you small. Look back at your own story. How many times did you think the end of something meant the end of you, only to realize later it was the beginning of a better version? Every broken friendship that taught you to stand alone, every job you lost that forced you to discover your own power, every identity you had to dissolve so you could make room for the one you're stepping into now. Winners don't cling to costumes that no longer fit. They harvest the lessons and leave the fabric behind. They understand that guilt is just the past begging for another chance, and they decline politely but firmly. They realize that nostalgia is a liar when it convinces you to trade your future for a rerun of what you've already outlived. And so they move, sometimes trembling, sometimes second-guessing, but they move anyway, because staying put hurts more than stepping forward. The people who win aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who let fear know it can ride in the car, but never touch the wheel. So as you stand here, ask yourself, what skin have you outgrown? What room have you been shrinking yourself to fit? What mask have you been polishing that you don't even believe in anymore? The sooner you drop it, the sooner you breathe, and the sooner you breathe, the sooner you rise. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the version of you who already lives the life you keep dreaming about. See the way they stand, the way their shoulders relax because they carry no doubt about belonging where they are. Watch how they start their mornings, not by negotiating with themselves, but by moving with a rhythm that doesn't allow hesitation to steal their momentum. Notice how they speak, measured, certain, unwilling to dilute their truth just to keep the peace. That version of you isn't some fantasy character living in a far-off future. They are as real as the breath you're taking right now, and they exist inside you like a blueprint. The only gap between who you are and who they are is the choices you make in the minutes that follow. The mistake most people make is treating their future self like a dream waiting to arrive instead of a manual waiting to be read. But the bridge is not built in one heroic leap. It's built in small, daily decisions that echo the standards of your highest self. Each morning, ask yourself, what decision would that version of me make before noon today? And then commit to making it. Not some grand life overhaul, but the small commitments that build scaffolding for bigger victories. Future you doesn't endlessly delay workouts. They move their body because it reminds them who they are. Future you doesn't hesitate before sending that proposal. They send it because they know rejection doesn't erase capability. Future you doesn't negotiate with their alarm clock. They rise because their vision matters more than comfort. These micro-choices compound in silence until one day you wake up and realize you are no longer trying to become your future self. You already are them. The truth is, you don't have to chase them. You align with them. Each consistent action pulls them closer, until the line between who you are and who you're becoming disappears completely. And yet the moment you start moving differently, resistance will show up disguised as logic, disguised as comfort, disguised as concern from people who never built what you're building. The friction is unavoidable. And here's the twist. It's a gift. The brain loves what's familiar, even if the familiar is killing your progress. So the moment you step into a new rhythm, your old wiring fights back. You'll feel the temptation to slide back into habits that once felt harmless but now stand exposed as thieves of your potential. Friends who are comfortable with your old version might tease you, question you, or try to slow you down without even realizing it. The voice inside your head will whisper, "Just this once, skip it, you've been doing enough." But this is where winners are forged. They reframe the resistance. Instead of interpreting it as proof they're on the wrong path, they see it as confirmation that they've entered new territory. They understand that friction is not failure, it is evidence of growth. Like lifting weights, the tension that feels uncomfortable is literally the thing building new capacity. The secret is to breathe into it, to normalize it, to make the new path feel less like a threat and more like an upgrade. This doesn't require drama or a fight, it requires practice. Just as you once trained yourself to tolerate the ordinary, you can train yourself to tolerate the extraordinary. Repeat the new behavior until it becomes your default. Expect the discomfort, welcome it, smile at it, and keep moving. Because every time you push through the resistance, you are proving to yourself that the old you no longer gets a vote. And once your body learns the new language of discipline, the new rhythm of progress, the very things that once felt foreign and difficult will become the most natural part of who you are. That's when momentum is unstoppable. When friction stops being a wall and starts being a sign that you're walking exactly where you're supposed to go. Momentum is not luck, and it's not magic. It's a formula that rewards clarity and punishes hesitation. Most people waste years waiting for motivation to strike, not realizing that momentum doesn't show up as a spark out of nowhere. It's built by stacking small wins in a rhythm so consistent that your brain has no choice but to adapt. Think of it like compounding interest. One promise kept to yourself each day, one deliberate stretch every week, and one intentional leap every month. A daily promise is something simple but non-negotiable. The workout, the journal entry, the chapter written, the outreach message sent. It's small enough to do even on bad days, but important enough to build credibility with yourself. Then there's the weekly stretch, the thing that forces you out of autopilot. Maybe it's having the uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding, pitching yourself to someone you think is out of your league, or dedicating a block of time to building instead of consuming. And finally, the monthly leap, the decision that feels too big to be comfortable, but too necessary to ignore. It could be investing in something that scares you, saying yes to an opportunity you don't feel ready for, or walking away from something that no longer belongs in your future. When you combine these three layers, momentum stops being a mystery and starts being math. But there's another side to the equation: subtraction. It's not just about adding effort, it's about removing drains. That one app that steals 2 hours and leaves you with nothing. That one person who plants doubt every time you speak your dreams out loud. That one routine that numbs you instead of nourishes you. They are the silent thieves of your greatness. Winners cut those cords early, not out of cruelty, but out of commitment to the version of themselves they're building. Once you clear the drains, you make room for amplifiers, inputs that multiply your energy instead of deplete it. That might mean building a morning routine that charges you instead of drains you, surrounding yourself with people who see the bigger picture, or exposing yourself to environments where excellence is the baseline instead of the exception. When you engineer your days this way, motivation becomes irrelevant. You don't need to wait for energy, you create it by design. The calendar starts working for you instead of against you, and the identity of a winner becomes less about hope and more about habit. Momentum is not about doing more, it's about aligning your days with what matters most and cutting out everything else. Once that alignment is locked in, progress stops feeling like pushing a boulder uphill and starts feeling like being carried by your own rhythm. But even momentum has a weak spot if your language betrays you. Words are not filler, they are frequency. Every time you say, "If this works," you tell your subconscious there's doubt in the outcome. Every time you whisper, "I hope I can," you tell your body it's not certain. And every time you joke about your goals not happening, you broadcast hesitation to a reality that mirrors back exactly what you declare. Shift your language and you shift your direction. Replace "if" with "when." Replace "I hope" with "I am." Start speaking as though you already belong in the life you're building. It's not pretending, it's programming. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you refuse to let fail. Winners don't undermine themselves with sloppy self-talk. They reinforce their identity with words that leave no room for retreat. One powerful way to do this is to name your season. Give this chapter of your life a title that pulls you forward. The build, the comeback, the expansion, the mastery year. Naming your season creates a frame, and frames are powerful because they remind you of the role you're playing every single day. Then, within that season, craft one personal rule you can carry into every environment you enter. It might be, "I don't negotiate my mornings," or "I keep promises to myself first," or "I leave every room better than I found it." A rule like this becomes your anchor when the world tries to pull you back into old patterns. It eliminates decision fatigue because you've already decided who you are before the situation arrives. Over time, your words begin to rewire your outcomes. They shape how you enter conversations, how you respond under pressure, how you see yourself when no one's watching. When your language and your actions agree, the universe stops treating you like someone dabbling in possibility and starts treating you like someone committed to inevitability. That is the hidden power of language. It doesn't just describe reality, it directs it. And when you direct your reality with precision, you discover that the biggest difference between the people who almost make it and the ones who actually do is not talent, not opportunity, not even luck. It's the story they tell themselves on repeat, and whether that story keeps them stuck in hesitation or launches them into the frequency of certainty. You don't need permission to start believing in yourself, but you do need proof, and the fastest way to generate that proof is to engineer it. Waiting for confidence to arrive before you act is how most people stay stuck for years, but winners flip the order. They act first and let the evidence of their own behavior fuel the belief. Proof isn't abstract, it's measurable. It's the number of calls you actually made this week, the pages you finished, the workouts you didn't skip, the money you put aside, the projects you submitted. Evidence is the antidote to self-doubt. When you can point to a scoreboard, even a small one, your brain has a harder time selling you the lie that you're not capable. So stop trying to build belief out of thin air. Build it out of receipts. Pick one target you can measure in 7 days. Keep it small enough that you can't justify excuses, but significant enough that it matters. It might be 10 proposals, 3 deep conversations, 5 workouts, 2 chapters, $50 saved. Write it down in ink, somewhere you'll see it every morning and every night, because visibility is accountability. When you slip, and you will, don't stage a trial in your head. Stage a restart. Winners don't have flawless streaks, they have fast rebounds. They understand that missing once is human, but missing twice is a choice. They never let a single mistake turn into a spiral. Each time you restart, you prove to yourself that discipline is stronger than discouragement. And here's the deeper truth. Your brain doesn't believe in affirmations nearly as much as it believes in patterns. When it sees you showing up again and again, even when you're tired, even when you're doubting, it begins to accept a new identity. I am the kind of person who finishes. Once that identity locks in, willpower becomes less necessary because you're simply acting in alignment with who you already believe yourself to be. That's how momentum solidifies, that's how confidence compounds, and that's how proof transforms into power. The scoreboard is not about impressing anyone else, it's about proving to the only person who matters, yourself, that your actions can be trusted more than your doubts. And then comes the declaration, the moment where all of this stops being theory and becomes a living decision. There's a line you cross when you decide that from this moment on, you are done living like your potential is a someday project. It starts with words, but it can't end there. Whisper it, write it, carve it into your daily actions. I choose the path where my ambitions and my behavior finally match. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when things calm down, now. Say it in a way that your body feels it. Comment with one word that captures what you're claiming for this season. Relentless, unshakable, aligned, fearless, abundant, free. Choose a word that feels like a frequency, one that demands your posture to rise every time you see it. But don't stop at the word. Anchor it with an act. Before this moment fades, take one immediate action that broadcasts your intent. Send the message you've been avoiding. Sign up for the thing you've delayed. Cancel the commitment that drains you. Block the distraction that steals your hours. Clear the desk. Set the alarm, move the money, begin. Small acts open big doors because they signal to your subconscious that you are serious. The universe doesn't reward vague hope, it responds to demonstrated intent. Each action becomes a broadcast, a frequency you're transmitting that says, I'm not playing small anymore. And as you stack those demonstrations, the world adjusts around you. Opportunities start finding you because you've become visible to them. The right people appear, not by coincidence, but because you've stepped into the rooms that match your declaration. Life begins to reflect not just what you want, but what you've decided you are. So make the declaration, mean it, and then prove it in motion. You found this message for a reason. Now prove that the reason wasn't random. Prove it with action, prove it with alignment, prove it by refusing to shrink back into the version of yourself that almost did. You are no longer almost. You are becoming. You are declaring. And once you declare with your words and confirm with your actions, nothing can stop the reality that begins unfolding from here.